This volunteerism series, it's a series, and we have a number of lecturers that present it, but it's representing the International College of Dentists and the Academy of Dentistry International, so it's a group project. And I want to put a special thank you out to our friends. You know, all of us know Henry Schein. Well, the Henry Schein Cares program has done a tremendous amount of contributions to humanitarianism around the world. And it's because of them that we're able to do some great things. So continue to support them. The core values, as everybody's familiar with, are leadership and recognition of service, and humanitarianism, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and education, which will be a vital part of what we'll speak on, and international professional relations. We can't do this alone, and as you'll see as we go through the lecture, we best do it with partnering with our international brothers and sisters. Goal 2, I didn't put them all down, but goal 2 for the Worldwide College is we want to increase the humanitarian footprint globally. And to do that, we need to maximize engagement with our fellows and dentists around the world. And doing this through humanitarian efforts, education, and building strategic alliances that sometimes are with individuals, as you'll see in the lecture, and sometimes it's with international health organizations, which there are some that are very prominent. So the ICD is really interested in this is because we recognize the fact that we know we can positively impact the quality of life and improve global health by working with people both locally and abroad. And we recognize the fact that health, oral health, physical health is a human right. It's not something that should be restricted to those that can afford it and be a barrier to care just because of not being able to afford. So the way we do this is we recognize service and the opportunities that we have to serve and to get the word out like you're doing today, to get the word out to what's out there, what we can do. Not everybody is aware that they're probably volunteering every day in their practices or in their community, and they don't even think of themselves as being volunteers. And what we do through the ICD is very complementary to some of these international organizations, such as the Health Volunteers Overseas and the parent organization of that. But the ICD would like to be a go-to resource for finding ways to volunteer. And the American Dental Association has a website where you can go and you can pick where you want to go and you can find a place to go. The International College Worldwide website has a map where you can look and see where are things happening in the world, where do I want to go, how long do I want to spend there. And they're very anxious to have anyone that's doing any type of volunteerism in your community, anywhere in the world, to let them know so they can put it on the map. It's important to do that. And we have so much experience within the college. Everybody in this room has different experiences in life, and you bring something different to each mission or each project to help your community or something abroad. So don't ever think that I've never done this before, I don't have anything to share. So the course, what you should expect is that we're going to talk about the nature of voluntary activities, why you should volunteer, the nature of being a volunteer, but you should be creative. There's things that you can do that you may not even be recognizing. And we're going to talk about the oral health conditions around the world. What's the magnitude of the problem? It's massive. And what are some appropriate international principles that we should follow in service in dentistry? But we've got to talk about cross-cultural issues and the need for cross-cultural training when we go abroad. So the type of projects, we have humanitarian service, the concept of giving a fish versus giving the process of teaching how to fish. One's sustainable and one's not sustainable. And that's what we should strive to do when we're doing some type of service. And it's important to build an international network so that we can be effective. We'll talk a little bit about that. And the fact that there are opportunities for you to go teach abroad, to go to another country and to work with the local dentist or with the community to help improve the level of care. So volunteering opportunities, what can you do? Where are you going to find them? We'll talk a little bit about that. But really, it's within your eyes. It's what you see, because you and I can see something different. So I encourage you to be creative and think outside the box to find something that will help you and make you feel good about what you're doing. We'll talk about different examples of service and teaching. So how to get started, how you can get started and not have a rough landing. We'll talk about that, and how maybe it's easier to plug into an existing program than starting one on your own. One of the common types of volunteering are medical dental, so combined together, medical and dental. The one in Dominican Republic was a medical and a dental, and they have not only come in and made a sustainable program, but they've actually improved the health of patients with their hypertension and their diabetes, and they've done research with this, and they have a structured program, and that's important. Missions of Mercy, do we have that here in Canada, or something similar, where you gather all the people together? Okay. Veteran healing, this is something that, and I said earlier, everybody has something that they like and they're inspired by. Well, veteran healing is something that I'll talk about, and veteran dental care, overseas education such as this, and going to communities, and then what we can do locally, and then we'll wrap everything up. So volunteers, you're offering to help somebody, you do something, and we all do that every day, particularly within our offices, within where we work. We're constantly helping somebody. It may be just something small, but we're trying to improve the quality of life of others, and it may be as simple as what I told my kids when they were growing up: make somebody smile today. No matter what else happens, just make somebody smile. If you can do that, then it's been a great day. And it's the same thing in health. Improving the health and the living conditions is going to make people smile and improve the education. You're probably going to have some personal growth. You're going to learn some things about yourself when you embed yourself in another culture, particularly when there's a language barrier. And looking for something to be passionate about is one reason to volunteer. Meeting new people and also having an adventure at the same time. So my question to you to ask yourself now is, what is your passion? And keep that in the back of your mind as we go through the presentation here, because there may be something there that you've never thought about before. We live on a big world, and sometimes it's hard to recognize that we have different problems and similar problems. Well, this is a really good publication. You can just go on the web and look up Oral Health Atlas, and it's a great publication. So if there's anything up in here you want to read more about and know more specific details, this is where the information comes from. So this little pyramid here just basically is talking about healthcare. And at the bottom in the green zone is the self-help, self-maintenance, daily care an individual gives to themselves. And so if we do a lot of that, then the frequency of need for more specialized professional care decreases as we go up to the pinnacle, where it's the specialized care. Also, if we do more of the home care, then healthcare needs are less expensive. So there's programs all over the world. This one that was talked about here was talking about in villages in Africa that oral pain was one of the 5 most reported complaints. And there's a program in Nepal to increase the use of fluoride toothpaste. And by doing this, that for every dollar spent, US dollar, let's say, spent, it can save anywhere from $87 to almost $400 in potential dental care. The Fit for School program in the Philippines is where teachers supervise hand washing and toothbrushing, and they get deworming twice a year. Cost is only, in a U.S. term, 50 cents per child per year, and it reduces caries by 40% and caries that has pulp exposure by 60%. So quite a tremendous program. What is the global burden of disease? Well, if we're talking about untreated decay and permanent teeth, global presence, 34% less all the way down till you get down to tooth loss. And if you look at the prevalence in the ranking, it shows that untreated caries is ranked number 1. And this gets into statistics that I don't even know about. But let's look at something more practical here. So the untreated decay in both primary and permanent teeth, if you look in terms of global population, over 3 million people, people who suffer from migraine headaches. Severe periodontitis, 743 million, diabetes, 549, and asthma, 334 million. That's huge. So has this changed over time? Well, what we see basically is that we have an aging population, and we know that from some of the publications in dentistry. We know that we're going to have more people edentulous because they're living longer. The change in prevalence, though, because we have this aging population, is it really hasn't changed that much over the last 25 years because we do have an aging population. What's this like geographically? This is where it can get really burdensome to look at the statistics and the numbers. But if you just look at the income in countries and say globally they're classifying a high income greater than 13,000 annually per capita, middle is 1,000 to 13,000, low is less than 1,000 per year per person. And it's really difficult to quantify this and have completely accurate because it's really difficult to collect and analyze this data, and there's going to be big variances in how recent it is, the quality. You're going to find the largest gap in the low-income countries because they can't afford to do these studies, and that may hide some disease that we don't know about. But if you look at decayed, missing, and filled teeth in 12-year-old children, and the colors, I know you can't really see them, but really basically what we're saying is that the upper middle income people have the highest decay rate. They also can get their teeth filled. The low income people have a lower decay prevalence than the middle income. And it's very interesting. So has the decay rate in the lower middle income, is it getting worse? Well, they don't think so, not yet. They feel like that things have kind of stabilized in the high income and the low middle incomes because of access to care and because they can afford to get their teeth fixed. But the expectation is that in this low to middle income group, or low middle income group, that the decay prevalence is going to increase because of the frequency of sugar intake. People can afford to buy sugar. And so one of the things was really very apparent to me in Vietnam was you don't ever see anybody eating candy. You don't see people eating junk food. If they're having a snack, they're eating fruit or vegetables. I lost 10 pounds when I was in Vietnam. It was a great diet because mostly what I ate was vegetables. So severe chronic periodontitis, again, if you look at and this is among 15-year-olds and older, at the colors, we have more than 15% of that age group has severe periodontitis. South America, Australia was surprising to me, and some of the Eastern Africa and Mexico. And then when you look at other regions like the United States, a lot of Africa, you get into 10% or less. So these things are really surprising to me. I never would have thought of. So thanks for the epidemiologists that did these studies. The incidence of oral cancer looking worldwide and looking at males, and they find that the highest rate is in India. So 12.6 people per 100,000 when they're looking at the male population. The women, and you look worldwide, they have a much lower rate than the men. Noma, which is a rapidly progressive and often gangrenous type of infection of the mouth and the face. In 1994, the World Health Organization declared it a public health problem, and this has been known for 1,000 years. They just didn't know how to treat it. And it mostly affects children as age 2 to 6, and it has as high as a 90% mortality rate if it's not treated. And there are some risk factors associated with that we can make a big impact on. And they estimate that 140,000 new cases a year are ongoing. So it begins as a gingival ulceration. It spreads rapidly within 1 to 2 weeks if not treated. It's seen in the malnourished, chronically malnourished, and often the weakened immune system, therefore. Other risk factors, some type of co-infection that hits the immune system. So measles, malaria, certainly poor oral hygiene and nutrition, malnutrition. So the real causative agent is not known, but these are risk factors. And we can do something about hygiene. So that's something that we can do. We can go to these areas and we can teach how to do oral hygiene. But we have to be, as we'll talk about later, we have to be careful about how we go to these countries and we teach them, because it has to be sustainable, and they really can't go down and buy a tube of toothpaste. So we have to think about that as we help these people. It's very responsive to antibiotics and oral hygiene, and if they get severe enough, of course, they're going to need maxillofacial surgery, and it's going to be a lifelong problem for these children. Here we're looking at sugar, and you can see the darkest shade of blue up there is where we have more than 100 grams per person per day. So 1.25 cans per day. So that has a big contribution to our caries rate. Tobacco smoking, and the age groups that we look at, here they looked at the age 15 and older, and they looked at the countries, and so the lightest color at the top, there's not but one area I can see on Eastern Africa, but if you look down to Eastern Europe, Russia and all that, I mean, you're like in 30-something%, so it's very, very, very high. And so these are areas where you're going to see problems with oral cancer. Natural fluoridation programs, the community water supply, and then you have fluoridation in salt and in milk. And the percent of the population that has fluoride, again, the lightest blue, like if you see in U.S., is high. There's a lot of fluoridation there. But if you look at the very bottom, where we don't have any data through Europe and through Africa, we have no ideas how that could improve things. There's 378 million people in these 25 countries that have fluoridation in a central water supply system, that have adequate fluoride. And there's 28 countries that have resorted to having fluoridation in salt because of not having good abilities to put that into their central water supply, or they've just elected not to do it. And oftentimes, as you'll see, fluoridated toothpaste is not available. And you can target the population. So these are areas where they use fluoridation in milk. And you've got at least 6 countries that have such a high occurring natural fluoride that moderate to severe dental fluorosis and skeletal fluorosis is pretty common. What about access to care? So these are going to talk about not just dentists, but maybe the dental therapist as well, that We've got fewer than 100 in the areas in the darkest shade of the blue. If you look in the U.S., the light colored area, we've got 500 to 900 or something. I think that was what it is. And we've got a lot of areas, a few areas I should say, where we don't have any data. In Vietnam, I had thought that they only had one, and if I look at the color up here, and I pick out Vietnam, it looks like that they only have one dental school. And I know that's not dental personnel, but they have 3 dental schools in Vietnam, which I really didn't know. But what they need in a lot of these areas is they need education in technology and science that they don't have access to. Dental schools per country, as I was just talking about in Vietnam, and look how many we have, in the U.S. That last slide I was talking about, and I said the U.S., of course I was talking about dentists. But here, dental schools, we've got a lot in the U.S. and Canada, and a lot in South America as well. So dental therapists was started back in 21 in New Zealand, and there's currently, at least at the time of this in 2012, there was 54 countries that use these in both high and low income. Most commonly, it's a 2-year training program. Sometimes there's 3 to 4 years, but it's combined with a hygiene program. And these are mostly focused on the care for school children. And it's utilized to improve access to care. We do that here in the States as well. We don't have dental therapists. So what are some factors that you should maybe think about when you're trying to decide, where you want to volunteer, what type of activity you want? Well, it should always be with the goal of improving the health. And think in terms of increasing the availability of health care. And you want to try to find an organization or a project that has self-sustaining activities. It's one thing to go in and provide emergent care because it's needed, and we need to have those programs. But we also need those programs where they're set up for sustainability so that when the volunteers leave, the local people can continue to be healthy until they can have the services come back. So it's nice to integrate with a program that's already established and one that's really integrating their program into the local community, involving the local citizens in the program, and find that those are most effective. Is that if we're going to go abroad and we're going to provide care, and if we're going to take our dental students to provide care, nobody, whether it's a licensed dentist or a dental student, should be providing care that they're not qualified to give. And so we have to be respectful of the code of ethics that we all have, and also what are the rules and regulations for practicing dentistry in that particular environment. And as I said, long-term impact and sustainability is what we can achieve when we go in and we offer training to the local community, whether it's something to improve their self-care or whether it's to the local professionals, or maybe it'll be a lay individual that could be something kind of like a dental therapist, something to help the local population until other more advanced care can come back. And be careful about, if you're on mission trips, of what materials they're using and what equipment that they're using and what donations you're making, because if they don't have access to this, then once that's depleted, then they're lost. I know that on the missions that I've been on, you really have to be thinking long range on how you're going to get your materials into that country. So if you have dental supplies or you've got dental equipment, you want to think about how that's going to be used in the country where it's being sent. And if you have equipment, it's great. We've got a lot of offices that are retiring and they just want to donate their equipment, but some of it is so old that there's no parts for it anymore. or they're not going to have access to those parts. So we need to think about those things. Project planning and reporting, your outcomes and evaluating your outcomes for success are really key to being able to improve and to make sure that what we're doing is that we're really actually helping the local citizens, the local community, so that it's not just about the volunteers are having a good experience, it's about, are we truly giving the communities what they need? So respecting the culture of the host community and just respecting their culture and try to adapt as much as possible. So following local recommendations, using local foods and products if you're going to be educating them about diet and hygiene, because they may not have access to the toothpaste. And sometimes we have to remember that even though we have good intentions, the volunteers are not properly informed. They're not educated. They're not educated on the history, the culture, the economics, to understand what faces the local citizens. So we need to make sure that we consult, or that the organization that we're joining, the mission, we need to make sure that they've researched this and they do have this in the forefront of their mind, is improving the health of the local people, and we're doing something that they want and that they need, and involving them is really, really important. That's how we can get sustainability. So in the past, the missions, they focused on infectious disease, vaccinations, good sanitation, education, and presently there's been a sharp increase in the chronic ailments. It's not just the tooth extraction, but a big increase in diabetes and hypertension that require regular monitoring. So if we go in there and we give them all these drugs to treat them, and then we leave and they have nothing for replenishing. So that's an important thing to look at when you're looking at different missions. And who's going to follow up? Involving the local physicians and dentists to become partners is key. So in some areas, like we're in the Dominican where I was, up in the mountains, access to care, I mean, these people, just to come to the clinic in the mountains where they live, they may walk for 4 hours through the mountains, or get on a donkey or a horse or their motorcycle, and they can't make it down into the cities. So getting those international relationships and partnerships is crucial, to where when the volunteers leave, if they have a denture sore or they have a problem with healing, you have someone there to take care of them. So what really got the volunteerism thing really something everybody wanted to do? Well, 9/11, a few days ago, how many years? We saw our country unite like I've never seen in my lifetime. And it's sad, but over the course of time, when 9/11 fades away due to day-to-day challenges, some of that partnership that you feel with the stranger on the street is diminished. It's not near as strong as what it was closely following the trade towers. What we see on CNN shapes a lot of what we feel in our hearts and what we feel motivated to do, and what we see on social media. And then, of course, you've got a lot of public figures that are going in and helping in areas like in Haiti and in Africa, and they find something they have a passion for, and they have the resources to make donations and to make things happen. But one thing that we don't often consider is that if we're giving a country food because of a natural disaster, and we want to help them so much that we make this an ongoing effort, what is it doing to the local community? Maybe the people that do the farming, they can't compete with free food, so they can't farm anymore. The people that have local stores where you can buy toothpaste, and if we're giving them toothpaste for free all the time, well, we're affecting that person's their business of selling products. So we have to think about our hearts being so big that it may be shrinking the pocketbooks and the income for the local citizens. And in addition to that, in some aspects, sometimes if a foreign government, and I say foreign, I'm speaking in terms of outside of North America. So it could be that a country sees, a government sees that we've got these great volunteers coming over here, and they're giving food to our population. Well, we don't have to provide that for our population anymore, or we don't have to provide, health care, whatever. So it may harm the local population because the local government may start to depend and expect that from the contributors, the volunteers. So that's another aspect we have to really be careful and think about. So focusing on unmet needs spurred this. Sometimes people have selfish goals. Sometimes companies put together volunteer programs to send their employees on because employees want international experiences. And it looks good for the companies to be with a global volunteer aspect to their company, because people look for that now. The young people are looking for that. And sometimes people are looking to go on mission trips just to put on their resume because it looks good. It's going to look good when I apply to medical school or dental school, or it's going to look good when I go to apply for the job over, at Google or YouTube. Sometimes companies are thinking this is going to boost my income. People are going to buy my product because I'm giving, shoes to another country. And there is something called tour volunteerism. Like the only one I know about is at the Sandals resorts in the Bahamas, where you can sign up for this if you're a dentist or want to help in some capacity, and you just donate one day, and you go and you do dental care and support for one day, and you stay at the Sandals resort. If we have dispensable income, discretionary income, we have the means to go on a lot of mission trips, because you'll find that you're going to have to pay your way on most mission trips. And so the people that don't have the funds to do that, that may have the desire, they oftentimes can't go, and so they may have to raise those funds. And the question is there a passion that you haven't fulfilled, or maybe there's one that you haven't discovered yet? And you might find that going on a mission, whether it's in your community or another community or in another country, you may find something about that culture that really directs you to a passion that you never thought you'd had. So who sponsors these missions? Well, when you see the word mission, until you become more exposed to these programs, I always thought missions just meant, well, it was a faith-based organization. It was from a church. And there's lots of those, and they're great. But the NGOs are on the rise. And as I said, corporate groups are sending their employees out for, they do good things, but there's also some things that they benefit from as well. Educational organizations like dental schools, sending their students out for international experiences. And then there's the hybrid mission, so it's a medical and a dental mission, where both of them are there. And engaging students and volunteers in global health activities should be an emphasis, and I think that the ICD is really on track for improving that. So what should you be looking for? Well, there's a lot of different ones. There's the one-shot or occasional visits. So we go down to Dominican Republic, and we go down there once a year, or we go down there, every couple years. That's one. And the health training of the volunteer, the education, training of the local people, you have to really look into that. And then there's the one visit on a periodic basis for surgical intervention. Those are very common, but it's good to have local backup for follow-up care. And the periodic but regular visits to the same location, screening and primary care, that's more like the mission that I went to on the Dominican Republic, because they go 4 times a year. So year-round operations with frequent short-term volunteers. Well, I guess that's really more what the Dominican is for us. But we want to be able to engage the local professionals so we can support them and they can support us and the citizens. So what training should you have before you go to these destinations? Well, obviously language could be a barrier. So if you're looking for something where language is not a barrier, here's some where English is an official language. But I've found that that English is pretty common in a lot of areas, and when you go to do a mission, there's generally somebody there that's going to be a translator. So it's not a big problem. It's just a matter of your comfort. How comfortable are you with having a little bit of a barrier to communication? You need a really stable organization who's going to sustain this year-round. That's critical. I keep saying that, but it's critical. And you'll find that if you're trying to organize one of these, you really need somebody in the country to help you assist with getting the arrangements, getting the materials and supplies into the country, and somebody that can supervise all of this in the community. Safety is key. Safety for the volunteers, safety for the patients, safety for our students. So the length of stay is going to vary. 2 to 3 weeks is pretty common, but not many people can afford to leave their office for that long. So a 1 week is really popular, and you can do a lot in 1 week. So 35% of the organizations report charging their volunteers anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for a volunteer trip. And usually the volunteers paying their own airfare, so this is in addition to that. 1 in 10 agencies charge nothing, and 28% of the organizations charge more than $2,000. Volunteers in the faith-based organizations pay the highest out of their own pocket. The NGOs, sometimes they pay nothing, but they overall pay the least. And educational institutions lie somewhere in between. So the U.S.-based organizations sponsor an estimated 20,637 volunteers a year. Seems like a lot. So the average approximate cost is about $1,500 per person. That's an aggregate of at least $1 million per year that's being spent on volunteerism. And we all come to this decision that we want to volunteer at a different time in our life. As I said earlier, the students of today, they're volunteering long before they get to professional school, many of them. Some of us, I mean, we do it later in life when we retire, and some in between. So we want to be a part of the solution, and that's why we're all here today. That's why we do what we do. But we don't want to be a part of the problem, so we want to be careful about the organizations that we join and how they've organized with the local communities. It's nice because you can go to new places and see new things and learn new cultures. At the same time, you're helping people. And the great thing is that there's enough of these out there that you can probably find something that would really inspire you and that you'd be really passionate about, or you'd find a new passion. So you can support a church or some type of organization. You can share your knowledge, your skill. You can go along, take your family, you can go along, and we have some that fill the pill bottles in the pharmacy. Some people sterilize instruments. You can go on mission trips where you're interacting with the professionals and you're exchanging knowledge. And this is one of the things that I think the ICD is really interested in doing, and that's developing worldwide, developing these professional relationships in other countries where we can have an exchange of information, an exchange of culture. And that's very, very, very important for us to be able to also understand what are the needs of those environments.